This has Cavs fans fired up. A recent report coming out making some bold predictions on the team, what to expect for them, some of the offseason moves, and I break it all down for you right here on Cavs Digest. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Cavs Digest. I'm your host, Darayus Sethna. Before we get into today's video, just want to remind you, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the Cavs Digest YouTube channel. Always love hearing your thoughts and opinions and the views, especially on our channel. So love seeing the growth, love seeing the interaction. So make sure you keep it up, like this video, and subscribe to the channel. So it's been, as we know, it's kind of dead season in the National Basketball Association, especially with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who really have their roster pretty much in place, you would think, for next season. So now it's really just all about, the chemistry, practicing, that sort of stuff, off-season rehabilitations, workouts, all of that. So there's really no big news to report. So, I was doing some research on what I wanted to talk about this week for the Cavs, and I was, doing some digging, looking at some stuff on Google. And this article, it's by a publication called Heavy Sports. It's one that really stood out to me. It's, it kind of solidifies a lot of the points that I've been making over the last couple weeks about the Cleveland Cavaliers, my predictions for them for the upcoming season, as well as kind of my thoughts on, the roster moves and team chemistry. So to kind of get into it, this article just really dives deep into some of the aspects concerning point guard Darius Garland. So as we all know, Darius Garland, if you don't know, had successful toe surgery back in June. Obviously that, toe injury during the 2025 playoffs really hampered him, especially you saw it in that series against the Indiana Pacers, which proved to be detrimental for the Cavs. So had successful surgery. The downside of this, though, is that he's likely to miss time, according to ESPN, likely to miss time for the start of the 25-26 campaign. Now, I don't think this is going to have drastic drastic effect on the Cavs, especially for the long term. However, I do think this is going to shake things up a little bit, and it's going to be kind of a challenge for head coach Kenny Atkinson in terms of rotations and what he can do. Now, you'd think the obvious move you'd make if you're Kenny Atkinson would be having Lonzo Ball as your starting point guard for the first part of the season. Now, to me, the question is, how can he and Donovan Mitchell coexist in that backcourt? And to be honest, I don't really know, right? On the bright side, though, if Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell can coexist as flawlessly as they have for these last few years now, then I don't see why that would be such a problem for Lonzo Ball and Donovan Mitchell. However, Lonzo Ball is a different player than Darius Garland. They have different tendencies. They like to play the game a different way. So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic works. And I think more importantly, we all know that Darius Garland to Jarrett Allen pick and roll lob threat, that is a heavy dosage of the Cavs' overall offense, and that's just not going to be there to start the year. So I'm really intrigued to see how Lonzo Ball steps up to the plate. What can he really add to that starting lineup to keep the Cavs rolling and be in a good spot once Darius Garland does come back? Kind of continuing off of this theme here, I wanted to get into what more of the article talked about in terms of what I think is the long-term effect of this, and I completely disagree with it. And here's what it says. So not only could Lonzo Ball elevate the Cavs' second unit, but he could also challenge for a starting spot. His defense could make him an ideal fit next to Mitchell. However, that would mean bringing Garland off the bench. So I don't know, the article didn't specify. I don't know if this means once Garland comes back from his injury and is kind of getting into the mix of things, or if this is just a long-term change that Kenny Atkinson would make. But nonetheless, I completely disagree with it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Darius Garland is the starting point guard of the Cleveland Cavaliers. No ifs, no ands, no buts, no whatevers. I do not care. This man deserves to be the starting point guard. He's being paid like a starting point guard. And I think once he's healthy, he needs to be the guy in the mix. Because yes, Lonzo Ball, is a better defender, but Darius Garland has that chemistry, not only with Donovan Mitchell, but like I said, with Jarrett Allen, and that was a key duo in terms of the Cavs' success on offense. And I talked about how efficient the team's overall offense was last year earlier this week in another video that was a little more stat heavy. But nonetheless, in layman's terms, Darius Garland is that guy at the starting point guard position for the Cleveland Cavaliers. No ifs, no ands, or buts. So that was really the only thing that got my eyebrows raising a little bit as I was reading this article. So kind of moving on from the whole Garland, Lonzo Ball scenario, I want to talk about this as well because it's still kind of a topic that I think we need to address. So when I was also doing research to make this video, I came upon ESPN. They released, grades for all 30 NBA teams in terms of their offseason moves. So the Cleveland Cavaliers, based on ESPN's thoughts, received a B. And to be honest with you, I think that's pretty fair. I think the Cavs have made some moves acquiring Lonzo Ball, letting go of Isaac Okoro and Ty Jerome, getting Larry Nance Jr. These are not earth-shattering, game-changing moves, but I don't think they've also hurt the team in any specific way. So really, I think a B is fair. I think A, you'd kind of be overhyping that a little bit, to be honest with you. But the question for me still remains at this backup center spot. Right, and I talked about this a few weeks ago. I brought up the name Thomas Bryant, Bismack Biyombo. The question here, I think, this has really got me thinking after reading this article, is there's still really not an answer here. Larry Nance Jr. to me is not a traditional center. To me, I see him more as a power forward. At least that's what he played a lot more when he was with the Cavs in his first stint with the Cavs. Evan Mobley, to me, just doesn't seem like a natural center as well, and I don't know what to really expect of Naquan Tomlin at this point. Talked about him a couple weeks ago, but is he even going to get minutes in Kenny Atkinson's rotation? So there's still a giant question mark to me with the backup center position for the Cavs, and that kind of takes me into Larry Nance Jr., who played for the Atlanta Hawks last year. Can he rise up to this occasion? Can he rise to the role of being that backup center? Because at this rate, it looks like that's what he's going to have to do. So Larry Nance Jr. last year with the Atlanta Hawks, only 24 games played too. That's another concerning element here. Hand injuries, was dealing with hand injuries in late December and January as well, and then ultimately was sidelined for the rest of the season because of a knee injury. So really didn't get to live up to his full potential with the Atlanta Hawks. You would hope maybe being rested since February that he can come in and make an impact right away, being healthy. Especially he's from the Cleveland area, hometown roots here. I think just that element too could be an extra sense of umph in him as well. So I really don't know what to expect from Larry Nance Jr. I think that's the concerning element of it as well, is that will he be healthy again, or will we still see the ramifications of his injuries be present in his play once the season starts again? So there's really, again, up in the air. And we'll see. Going back to Darius Garland as well, I thought this was really interesting. Kind of a fun fact here. Darius Garland, one of two players in the entire NBA to average 20 points per game, 5 assists per game, and shoot 40% from three-point range. You want to know who the other guy it was? Nikola Jokic. Okay, so when you talk about Darius Garland, again, another reason he should not be even thought about going on the bench is because of his efficiency, especially from this past season that I saw. I consistently harp on the growth of Darius Garland, and it is well-deserved. To me, this was his best year so far. I think he's only going to get better. Now, obviously, this toe injury can hamper that a little bit, but I don't think the long-term consequences are going to be that significant, to be quite honest with you. And then, as for Larry Nance Jr., we'll see what happens. Still a lot of question marks in terms of the Cavs' backup center position. But again, just thought this would be a fun, little article that I thought, really, again, solidified a lot of the stuff that I've been saying over the last few weeks. But I also thought, gave me a new perspective on how to look at some of these players, especially with Lonzo Ball and Larry Nance Jr., as we continue our offseason chats. Well, that concludes my latest video here for Cavs Digest. Again, I love hearing what you guys have to say. So what do you think about some of these Cavs moves? Especially the roster grade. Do you think a B is fair? Do you think they should get an A? Do you think they should be less than a B? What are your thoughts on that side of things? And then what are your thoughts on maybe Lonzo Ball being in the starting lineup? Can Larry Nance Jr. live up to the expectations of being a backup center in this league despite some past injuries? There's a lot to talk about on that front of things. But until next time, thanks so much for joining me here on Cavs Digest. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the Cavs Digest YouTube channel. Always love hearing your thoughts. Want you to be involved here on the show, so make sure you like this video and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Darayus Sethna, and stay tuned for more right here on Cavs Digest.